On the night of December 7, 2009, while talking on the phone with her fiancé, Brandie Davis suddenly whispered, "I have to go. Molly's here." But the person standing behind that door wasn't Molly, and those were the last words he ever heard from her. 24 hours later, Brandie's body was found in her apartment with horrific injuries, covered with items, as if someone was trying to bury the crime. So why did Brandie lie? And who was the killer? Welcome to the Case Files, where we unveil the most shocking criminal cases, where truth hides behind every clue, every testimony, and every drop of blood left at the crime scene. Today, we're stepping into one of the most heartbreaking cases in the college town of Statesboro, Georgia, where a promising 19-year-old girl was robbed of her life just hours before her mother was to undergo a dangerous heart surgery. In this episode, we're taking a deep dive into the infamous case of the campus crossing murder, the Brandie Danielle Davis case, a brutal murder that happened on a rainy winter night, where the killer wasn't a stranger, but a trusted friend. 1. Background: the girl with a kind heart. December 2009. Winter had begun to blanket the town of Statesboro, a small college town in southern Georgia, USA. This area was home to 3 major colleges, including Ogeechee Technical College, the school where Brandie Danielle Davis, 19 years old, was in her first year. Brandie wasn't just an ordinary student. She came from McDonough, about a 3-hour drive north of Statesboro. She chose to study healthcare for a very special reason. Her mother, Stephanie Davis, suffered from a serious heart condition, and Brandie hoped that one day she could care for her mother herself. Brandie lived at Campus Crossings Apartments on Lanier Drive, a modern student housing complex where each apartment had electronic locks that recorded entry and exit times. She was a cheerful, sociable girl with many friends, and was in a serious relationship with her fiancé, Dustin Willett, who lived in McDonough. December 2009 was a stressful time for Brandie. She had to prepare for final exams while worrying about her mother's upcoming open-heart surgery. But no matter the pressure, Brandie always made time for friends, especially old friends from her high school days in McDonough. 2. The Day of Fate, December 7, 2009. Monday, December 7, 2009, should have been just another normal day for Brandie. Her plan was to finish her exam Tuesday morning, December 8th, then drive back to McDonough to be with her mother during her heart surgery that afternoon. On the evening of December 7th, around 6:00 p.m., Brandie received a call from an old friend named Daryl Anthony Priestley, an 18-year-old guy she'd known since 9th grade at high school in McDonough. Priestley and another friend named Raul Delgado asked Brandie to give them a ride to pick up Delgado's truck outside of town. Brandie, with her easygoing and helpful nature, agreed. After helping Delgado get his truck, the group returned to Brandie's apartment around 7:00 p.m. There, they watched TV, chatted, and relaxed, a typical way for students to de-stress during exam season. Another friend named Anthony Farber joined the small gathering. All 4 people, Brandie, Priestley, Delgado, and Farber, sat together in a relaxed atmosphere, not knowing that these would be the last moments friends would see Brandie alive. Around 10:30 p.m., the 3 guys decided to leave, so Brandie could rest and prepare for her exam the next day. They said goodbye and left the apartment. Brandie closed and locked the door, preparing for a late-night study session. But no one knew that one of those 3 would return, and things would never be the same again. 3. The mysterious call, 11:09 p.m. Around 11:09 p.m. that same night, Brandie was talking on the phone with her fiancé, Dustin Willett. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. Brandie paused, then told Dustin, "Hold on a second. Someone's at the door." "Oh, it's Molly. I'll call you back." Dustin didn't suspect anything and hung up. He thought it was just a girlfriend stopping by to see Brandie. But in reality, The person standing outside the door wasn't Molly. Just seconds after Brandie hung up with Dustin, her phone immediately called Daryl Priestley's number twice. Each call lasted only a few seconds, just enough for the phone to ring a few times. Why did Brandie call Priestley right after hanging up with her fiancé? And why did she lie to Dustin, saying it was Molly at the door? These questions would become central to the investigation later. According to electronic records from the apartment's door lock at 11:33 p.m., someone locked Brandie's apartment door from the inside. And from that moment until security staff opened the door the next afternoon, the door was never opened again. What does that mean? It means someone was inside the apartment with Brandie after 11:33 p.m. and then locked the door before leaving. 4. The terrifying silence. December 8th, 2009. Tuesday morning, December 8th, Brandie's mother, Stephanie, was lying in the hospital, preparing for her crucial open-heart surgery. Beside her was Brandie's grandmother, both eagerly waiting for Brandie to arrive. But by 1:00 p.m., when Stephanie was about to be taken into the operating room, Brandie still hadn't shown up. Her phone had no signal. Stephanie called her daughter 6 times, and the grandmother called just as many times, but no one answered. Panic began to set in. Brandie's grandmother, in an extremely tense state, told her daughter, "Find her. Something's wrong." She immediately called the management office at Campus Crossings Apartments, asking them to check if Brandie was in her room. The management promised to call back within 30 minutes. But when they entered Brandie's apartment, what they saw made them run out and immediately call 911. 5. The horrific crime scene. Around 3:30 p.m. on December 8, 2009, Statesboro police received a report about a body at Campus Crossings. Detective Chris Winsky from the Criminal Investigation Division was one of the first to arrive at the scene. When he stepped into Brandie's bedroom, he couldn't believe his eyes. Brandie's body lay on the floor, between the bed and the desk. But what was terrifying was that she was completely covered with a laundry basket and other items, topped with an office chair. It seemed like someone had tried to bury her in their own way, a sign that the killer had an emotional connection to the victim. When police removed the items, they discovered a horrific scene. Brandie's t-shirt was pulled up high, exposing her chest, but she was still wearing pants. Around her neck were 2 electrical cords, one from a laptop computer, one from a stereo system. Her face was covered with bruises, scratches, and what appeared to be carpet burns, showing she had struggled violently. The most horrific thing, a mechanical pencil was jabbed through the roof of her mouth, with the tip protruding out. Police immediately suspected this was a sexual assault. However, tests later showed there was no evidence of sexual assault. The initial autopsy report determined Brandie's cause of death was strangulation. She was strangled by hand and with electrical cords. Notably, the pencil wound occurred after Brandie was already dead, meaning the killer deliberately created this wound to mislead the investigation. 6. The hunt for the killer begins. That very night of December 8th, Detective Winsky and his investigation team conducted 17 to 18 interviews with friends, neighbors, and people who knew Brandie. Among those who voluntarily came to the scene to provide information were 2 young men named Raul Delgado and Anthony Farber, 2 people who had been with Brandie the previous evening. They told police that they and a 3rd friend, named Daryl Priestley, had visited Brandie on the evening of December 7th, leaving around 10:30 p.m. Police immediately contacted Priestley and asked him to come in for questioning. Priestley agreed and appeared cooperative. But when analyzing Brandie's call records, police discovered an extremely important detail. Brandie had called Priestley's phone number twice at 11:09 p.m., just seconds after she hung up with her fiancé, Dustin Willett. Dustin stated that Brandie told him Molly was at the door. But when police verified, they discovered that Molly never went to Brandie's apartment that night. So who was really at the door? Police began to suspect Priestley, and when they interrogated him, they discovered serious contradictions in his statements. 7. Daryl Priestley's contradictory testimony. Initially, Priestley insisted that after leaving Brandie's apartment at 10:30 p.m., he didn't return. But when police presented evidence of the 2 calls from Brandie's phone to his number at 11:09 p.m., Priestley began to stammer. Finally, he changed his story and admitted that he had returned to Brandie's apartment around 11:00 p.m. to get his cell phone that he'd left behind. According to Priestley, he knocked on the door, Brandie opened it, and she called his phone twice to help him find his phone lost between the sofa cushions. After finding the phone, he said he left. But police didn't believe that. They suspected that Priestley deliberately left his phone behind to have an excuse to return to Brandie's apartment when she was alone. Additionally, when asked why Brandie told her fiancé the person at the door was Molly instead of Daryl, Priestley replied, "I'd like to know that myself." 8. Scientific evidence. DNA on the ligature. While investigator Winsky continued to interrogate Priestley, forensic experts were analyzing evidence collected from the scene, and they discovered a decisive clue. On the 2 electrical cords that strangled Brandie, there was Daryl Priestley's DNA. This was irrefutable evidence. Priestley wasn't just present at the scene, he directly participated in the killing. When confronted with the DNA evidence, Priestley finally confessed. 9. The contradictory confession. In a videotaped and audio-recorded interview at his home in McDonough, Priestley told his version of the story. According to him, after returning to the apartment to get his phone, he and Brandie started horsing around. Then suddenly, Brandie tripped and fell, and the mechanical pencil jammed into her mouth, causing a serious injury. Priestley said, "Saw Brandie take her last breath." Panicked, he didn't call for help, but decided to stage the scene to make people think someone else had killed Brandie. He wrapped the 2 electrical cords around her neck, covered the body with clothes and a chair, then locked the door before leaving. He said he locked the door out of respect. But Detective Winsky didn't believe that explanation. He said, "In my opinion, he locked the door to keep her from being found." And more importantly, the autopsy report completely disproved Priestley's testimony. 10. The truth revealed. Forensic doctors determined clearly. The pencil wound occurred after Brandie was already dead. This proved that Brandie didn't die from tripping and falling on the pencil, as Priestley claimed. The official cause of death was strangulation. Brandie died from being strangled by hand, manual strangulation, and with electrical cords, ligature strangulation. The bruises, scratches, and carpet burn-like marks on her face, neck, ears, and scalp showed she had fought violently in self-defense. All this evidence pointed to one brutal truth. Daryl Priestley had deliberately murdered Brandie Davis. On December 23, 2009, police officially arrested Daryl Anthony Priestley on charges of murder, tampering with evidence, and giving false statements. 11. The justice system in action. After his arrest, Daryl Priestley was held at Bullock County Jail awaiting trial. In a bond hearing in January 2010, Judge David Williams denied Priestley bond, reasoning that he could pose a danger to the community. Ogeechee Judicial Circuit Assistant District Attorney Daphne Jeriel took on the role of prosecutor in this case. During hearings, Jeriel described the crime scene in detail so the judge would understand how brutal the crime was. She emphasized, Brandie's body showed signs of a violent struggle with bruises, scratches, and what appeared to be carpet burns on her face, neck, ears, and scalp. Priestley's DNA was found on the electrical cords that strangled the victim. The pencil wound occurred after the victim was already dead, proving Priestley deliberately staged the scene. Electronic evidence from the electronic door lock and call records all matched the timeline of the crime. Throughout the time awaiting trial, Brandie's family had to live with unbearable pain. Brandie's mother, Stephanie, had to undergo heart surgery in a state of panic over losing her daughter. Brandie's grandmother, who had sensed something was wrong, also lived with the haunting memory of that fateful day. 12. The trial and sentencing. On December 20, 2010, exactly 1 year after his arrest, Darrell Anthony Priestley appeared before Judge William T. Woodrum at Bullock County Superior Court. In a surprising turn, Priestley decided to plead guilty rather than go to trial. He pleaded guilty to 3 charges: murder, tampering with evidence. Giving false statements, Judge Woodrum handed down the sentence: life in prison plus 10 years. Under Georgia law, Priestley must serve a minimum of 30 years before being eligible for parole consideration. During the hearing, Priestley did not look at the victim's family. He stood silently as the sentence was read. After the hearing, Prosecutor Daphne Jerial stated that justice had been served, but nothing could bring Brandie back to her family. 13. Exclusive interview. The killer refuses to explain. On December 22, 2010, 2 days after the trial, the Statesboro Herald had an exclusive interview with Darrell Priestley at Bullock County Jail. This interview shocked the public because of the killer's cold attitude and lack of remorse about pleading guilty. When asked why he pleaded guilty, Priestley answered, "I knew I couldn't beat these charges at trial. I decided to plead guilty just 5 minutes before the judge asked." But notably, Priestley denied confessing anything in court, even though he had officially pleaded guilty. About the motive and details of the crime. When the reporter asked about the motive and what happened that night, Priestley repeatedly refused to answer. "Danielle knows what happened. I don't want to get into that. No one would believe me. The prosecutor didn't believe what I said. There's no point in telling. No one understands, and they'll think I'm lying." About apologizing to the victim's family, Priestley refused to answer whether he thought Brandie's family could or should forgive him. He also refused to answer whether he could forgive himself. The only thing he revealed was, "I was going to say something to her family in court, but there were reporters there, and I didn't want the whole world to know." About the DNA evidence, when asked about his DNA on the ligature cords and why he tried to stage the scene, Priestley simply said, "Next question." About healing, when the reporter asked if telling the truth would help Brandie's family and his own family heal, Priestley replied coldly, "Healing? I've got 40 years to heal." At the end of the interview, when the reporter asked if the incident was the result of an emotional or mental breakdown, Priestley became agitated, stood up, and pressed the button to call the guard to leave the interview room. 14. The relationship between killer and victim. During the interview, Priestley provided some information about his relationship with Brandie. High school years. They first met in 9th grade, in English class at high school in McDonough, Georgia. Priestley said he was a B student, a member of Refuge House of Worship, a local church, and had no prior criminal record. He said he and Brandie were friends, but not really close. They hung out together a few times during high school. College years. After graduating from high school, both went to Statesboro for college. Brandie attended Ogeechee Technical College, while Priestley attended East Georgia College. Priestley said he ran into Brandie a few times at bars. December 7, 2009, Priestley and his friend Raul Delgado felt close enough to Brandie to ask her for a ride to pick up Delgado's truck. They then returned to Brandie's apartment and stayed for about an hour before leaving with a third friend named Anthony Farber around 10:30 p.m. Importantly, even though Priestley said they weren't really close, Brandie was still willing to help him, showing her kind nature and willingness to help others. And it was that kind heart that led her to tragedy. 15. Questions that will never be answered. Even though Priestley was convicted, many questions remain unanswered. What was the real motive? Priestley refused to explain why he killed Brandie. Police suspected he returned to the apartment with the intention of sexual assault, but was rejected and fought off by Brandie. However, there was no evidence of sexual assault. Why did Brandie lie to her fiancé? When Priestley knocked at 11:09 p.m., Brandie was talking on the phone with her fiancé, Dustin. She told Dustin the person at the door was Molly, a female friend, instead of telling the truth that it was Priestley. Why did she lie? Was it because she knew her fiancé wouldn't be happy knowing a guy was visiting her at 11 p.m.? Or did she feel uneasy about Priestley's appearance? Did Priestley deliberately leave his phone behind? Police believed Priestley deliberately left his phone behind to have an excuse to return to the apartment when Brandie was alone. But Priestley denied this. What really happened inside the apartment? Priestley said they were horsing around, and then Brandie tripped and fell on the pencil. But forensic evidence proved this was a lie. So what really happened? These questions may never be answered because Priestley has chosen silence. 16. The victim's family. Endless pain. Brandie Davis's family had to endure an irreplaceable loss. Brandie's mother, Stephanie, had to undergo heart surgery in the most horrific circumstances possible. While lying on the operating table, she received news that her only daughter had been murdered. That pain is something no words can describe. Brandie's grandmother, who had sensed something was wrong and urgently asked the apartment management to check the apartment, also had to live with the haunting memory of that fateful day. Brandie's fiancé, Dustin Willett, was the last person to talk to her while she was alive. He had to live with guilt. If he had realized something was wrong during that call, could things have been different? Brandie's friends at Ogeechee Technical College and the Statesboro student community organized many prayer vigils and memorials to remember her. A neighbor named Kramer Roberson, 20, who attended high school with Brandie, said, "It's crazy for this to happen here. It's very unfortunate. It's too much to take in." 17. Lessons from tragedy. The Brandie Davis case leaves many painful lessons about personal safety. Even when inside your own apartment with modern electronic lock systems, danger can still come from people you know. Opening the door for acquaintances late at night can pose risks. Trust your intuition. If you feel uncomfortable, don't hesitate to say no or call someone else. About technology's role in investigations. Phone data, calls, messages played a decisive role in establishing the timeline. Electronic locks that recorded entry and exit times helped police determine exactly when the killer left the scene. DNA is irrefutable evidence in the age of modern forensic science. About criminal psychology. Many killers try to stage crime scenes to mislead investigations. Killers don't always feel remorse. Priestley displayed a cold and unemotional attitude. Refusing to explain motives is a way for killers to maintain control after being caught. Conclusion and call to action. Conclusion. The story of Brandie Danielle Davis's death isn't just a simple murder case, but also a painful testament to the hidden dangers in seemingly harmless relationships between friends and acquaintances. A 19-year-old college student full of ambition, always working hard to study and build her future, had her life taken away just because of the selfishness and lust of someone she once trusted. Darryl Priestley, the friend who sat in the same classroom at age 15, the person Brandie had enthusiastically helped, was the one who ended her life in an act of unforgivable violence. He didn't just kill her, but also staged the crime scene to mislead investigators. But those efforts couldn't hide the truth. Through the determination of investigators, Through forensic evidence and digital data, justice was served. But even when the killer was punished, the pain of loss remains, lingering, haunting in the hearts of family, friends, and those who loved Brandie. A girl whose life was too young, who didn't get to graduate, who didn't get to fulfill her dreams. She died alone, in a room that was supposed to be her safe haven. That's the most heartbreaking part. Final message. Brandie's mother once said she believed her daughter was born to make a positive impact on those around her. And perhaps Brandie truly did that, not just when she was alive, but even after she passed away. Her story makes society think more about boundaries in personal relationships, the need to recognize warning signs early, the importance of trusting your own intuition, signs of control, possession, or abnormal behavior in any relationship. Those seemingly small signs, if not heard, if not stopped in time, can completely lead to tragedy, like Brandie Davis had to endure. Call to action. To young people, trust your intuition. If you feel unsafe, don't hesitate to say no or call a family member. Don't open the door for strangers or acquaintances late at night when you're alone. Share your schedule with family members so they always know where you are and who you're with. If you see friends with abnormal or suspicious behavior, don't hesitate to report to authorities. To parents, keep regular contact with your children, especially when they're living away from home. Teach children about personal safety and how to recognize dangerous situations. Create an environment where children feel comfortable sharing when they have problems. To the community, be a good neighbor, care about those around you. If you see or hear something suspicious, don't hesitate to call police. Support organizations working for women's and youth safety. Brandie Davis can't come back, but memories of her will live on forever in the hearts of those who know this story. And in a way, justice for Brandie is also an awakening for an entire community that each of us has a responsibility to protect, speak up, and fight for the safety of those around us. We hope this pain won't repeat with another Brandie Davis. If you or someone you know is in danger, call emergency hotlines or local police immediately. Don't hesitate. Your life is more precious than anything. Thank you for watching the Case Files. If this story moved you, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one. And remember, stay safe, stay vigilant, and look out for each other. Until next time, this is the Case Files, signing off.